everyone, I'm Candace Miller, Director of Marketing at Entelo, and I want to thank you for joining our webinar about talent pipelining and why it's critical now. Just to go through some quick housekeeping, we'll be sharing a recording of this webinar in case any of you have to leave early. Additionally, we'll have time to answer some questions at the end, so feel free to use the chat or QA within the Zoom interface. Before we get started, I want to give a quick introduction to Entelo. Entelo is the world's first all-in-one source-to-hire recruitment platform that's changing the way companies hire around the world. Our recruitment automation technology streamlines your hiring process with access to over 500 million candidate profiles backed by AI and predictive analytics to build and engage diverse candidate pipelines. Increase your interview-to-hire efficiency with our Convey IQ solution that provides optimized candidate journeys, seamless interview self-scheduling for candidates, on-demand and live digital interviews, candidate surveys, analytics, and more. In terms of pipelining talent, Entelo allows recruitment teams to instantly source talent pools of candidates from your top competitors by their skills, titles, gender, ethnicities, years of experience, and more. With over 500 million candidate profiles from over 55 data sources at your fingertips, you can easily build multi-channel candidate pipelines at scale. Once you've identified your candidate pool, our track feature allows you to monitor your outreach in real time and build automated drip campaigns while providing insights into subject line optimization and inclusive language. Lastly, we've recently launched our talent acquisition community to connect TA professionals that have been laid off or furloughed with companies that are hiring for similar roles. Our team understands how stressful and uncertain things are right now for so many of you in our community. If you're actively seeking a new opportunity or hiring for TA roles within your organization, please, we urge you to sign up today. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers, our Talent Insights and Innovation Strategist, Alejandro, and industry veteran, Mike Cohen, aka Batman. Hey guys, thank you both for joining. Today we're going to cover three things. Alejandro will talk about the current state of the TA space and what we witnessed during past downturns. We'll share some actionable strategies and follow up with 3 concrete examples to take home. Then we'll chat about a few best practices when it comes to outreach during these difficult times. As a special treat, Mike Cohen, founder of BuyIn Technologies, will discuss what he sees happening in the industry. He'll share some of his own outreach messaging examples and explain how you can create some helpful adjustments during this time. Without further ado, I give it away to Alejandro.
Thank you so much, Candace. Let's start with some good news here. Things are tough all around from an economy perspective, no question. That said, according to Harvard Business Review, when it comes to the 3 broad scenarios that we could explore from recession and recovery perspective, the most likely is a classic V-shaped. Prior epidemics were all V-shaped: 2002 SARS, 1968 Hong Kong flu, the 58 Asian flu, going all the way back to 1918 Spanish flu. The good news is that at the end of the day, hopefully we'll see an eventual rebound where the annual growth rates fully absorb the shock of the losses. Arrow in green. The fiscal and monetary policies being implemented today were not done quite so properly during the Great Depression. And when you factor in the global stimulus, the magnitude, speed, etc., being something we've never seen before, there's definitely reason to be optimistic. The $2.5 trillion fiscal package and additional monetary expansion might fully offset the entire shutdown in the US in terms of total GDP. Or put differently, even a complete economy shutdown for 2 months has, everything else being equal, no effect on the $19.3 trillion US GDP. And then, well, there's the thinking that necessity is a matter of invention. The amount of companies founded in the aftermath of the dot-com bust and 2008 crisis is simply astounding. We will figure things out. I could share a little bit about my personal story and experience through economic downturn, and especially the TA world. Well, I was born and raised in Mexico. There, we essentially had a devaluation or a recession every 6 years. 1994 was brutal. The Mexican peso went from 3-to-1 to 10-to-1 versus the dollar, meaning debt as business and personal loans originated in dollars suddenly was 3 times as high. Tough times. I lived through the dot-com bust during college, the aftermath of 9/11, and relevant to our chat today, I was definitely working in TA during the 2008 crisis. Prior to that, back when multicultural marketing was the trending topic, before we were really talking about D&I from a center stage perspective, I'd personally helped hire entire departments and ad agencies. I saw them completely disappear in a matter of weeks. And like Lehman, poof, there were no more. But the lessons, those stuck around. For those working during those times, you may recall how the world just suddenly shifted. In my case, I realized that was an opportunity to pivot and focus in an industry that was growing. In my case, that was legal. I had absolutely no experience in that space. The learning curve was steep, to say the least. That was the opportunity that I chose to embrace. I started my TA career as a staffing coordinator. I rose to be the vice president of staffing at a plus $500 million company in annual revenue. I built the fastest growing division in the company's 12-year-old history and took my team's annual performance from 2.8 to $20 million, hiring hundreds of people. So what I'm trying to get at here is setbacks make us who we are. And as TA professionals, that in one word is resilient. The offers will fall through. The candidates will ghost us. The hiring managers, they'll change their minds. You name it. Working in TA requires a growth mindset, the ability to just shake things off and learn from past experiences. As Herman Hesse Siddhartha said upon visiting Kamaswamy, it is key to know how to think, how to be patient, and how to fast. As we think about this, more than half of the companies on the Fortune 500 list in 2009, meaning they stayed strong during particularly tough times and were resilient, were founded during bear markets or recessions. Recently, the amount of companies founded after the dot-com bust and 2008 crisis, again, is outstanding. Look at just these 8 companies, $30 billion. But let's think about it. What are the potential legacies? We mentioned SARS in 2003 earlier in our chat today. It is actually credited with the adoption of online shopping among Chinese consumers, which absolutely accelerated Alibaba's rise. They had $56 billion in revenue last year. So what can we expect for us in TA? Well, digital interviewing, virtual onboarding, and the future of remote work will be some of the legacies, especially within the context of AI and automation of the most manual tasks as we do a whole lot more with a ton less. And we start to actively open up talent pools that were simply not available before. We will figure things out. We're all fasting, a little or a lot. Recruiters are often among the first people to feel the pain when hiring slows down, but you're all extremely important in both the short-term and long-term outlooks. I can share from personal experience that TA has never been more respected as a strategic partner and talent recognized as a true engine of growth as it has been in the last few years. When we think about that 3, 5, 10-year span, companies are likely going to regret reducing recurring activities to close to zero or being backburned. There is always an after. The key here is to think of what that future may look like. Again, here's the part about Siddhartha's patience and thinking comes in. Completely stopping activities now and only restarting if the coronavirus is contained would be a major setback for recruiting and potentially the entire employer brand. I can share again personal experience when interviewing in the world post-2008. I always asked how the company adjusted during that period. The companies that figure things out during tough times, they instill confidence and their stability and resourcefulness. Just like the 50% of the Fortune 500 list in 2009 I was referring to. And most importantly, you. TA can be critical partners for the most understaffed and strained workforces. And when we return to normalcy, recruiters will be absolutely essential in helping people get back to work. Whew. We're thinking things are going to be a little bit different this year. Very, very different. But as we look back, a lot of those general trends are still constant and simply come down to understanding your internal and external clients, your processes, technologies available, and your brand to anticipate as best as possible where things may be heading and think about how to maximize your value and be part of that process. Number 1, candidate experience remains essential. 78% of the candidates judge the hiring journey as a mirror of your company's culture and organizational structure. According to a candidate experience survey conducted by Career Builder, speed matters. 69% of candidates want the hiring process complete in less than 2 weeks. Tall order. Prioritizing the candidate experience, consumer grade, aligned with your cultural values and goals that segments candidates with tailored journeys is particularly important. And more so when you may not be able to give them the tour of the office to get a sense of your company's vibe right now. Number 2, soft skills. Think social, emotional in nature are heavily in demand and growing. 26% in the US, 22% in Europe. It is actually estimated that about 2/3 of the jobs created from now till 2030 are expected to focus on soft skills like empathy and communication. David Grunbin's Deloitte Access Economics partners show that if we continue as we are, the skills shortage will grow to 29 million by 2030, and the bulk of those missing skills will be those of the heart. These are the things that will give you in TA the edge over AI and machine learning. What makes you essential. With that, people analytics are definitely influencing strategy. 71% of the companies surveyed saw this as a high priority for 2020. This again could be an opportunity for you to change things. And once again, it's all about you. You are the key here, the role of the strategic recruiter. Strategic recruiters are more tech-enabled than ever, supercharged in their ability to engage with stakeholders, including hiring managers, candidates, leaders. They're able to move from a reactive recruitment to proactive sourcing, from external to internal talent pools. The benefit is a great experience for everyone involved in the recruitment process, leveraging technology that facilitates an accelerated workflow. This, of course, can include things like silver medalists, pipeline candidates, you name it, right? So just nurture them, revisit them, engage them. Things will turn out around at some point. The data, soft skills, candidate experience, and relationships you built will position you to be in a better place to bring them home. As we've embraced change, the next thing we can do here is maximize your impact by both leading with data and building relationships. What we need to do here is understand your department's heads. Schedule some virtual coffee breaks. Pick their brains. It might have been incredibly difficult to do this in the past. Geography aside, the current situation may open up opportunities for you to engage at a much higher levels within your organization. Before you do that, do your research, understand the trends, market, total addressable markets, think talent pools, and bring these to the table into your discussions. Key here, especially in these times, is to think about talent mobility. Going back to leadership, Deloitte found out that 76% of C-suite respondents rated internal mobility as important, and 1 in 3 rated as the top 3 most urgent issues for the organization. This again could open up a new role as you specifically address a key internal pain point. Analyze what skills have flown out and how can we predict and fill in those gaps. Now, were those hard skills like JavaScript or soft skill like management or presentation skills? How do you build around that? When according to LinkedIn's global report, 92% of TA professionals believe these to be just as important as the hard skills. I can tell you that while working with the largest companies here at Entelo, showcasing mishires, the skill drains, and how the teams are searching has provided key insights on how to tackle all these shifts with leadership. There's a whole lot more to unpack here. Hey, perhaps in a later session. But for now, just trust your CFO and other execs will pay special attention when you factor in the output and cost of input. Now, after thinking holistically about talent mobility, let's look outward. Engage with the talent, and let's start by prioritizing those high-value targets. Most companies just start with higher-level roles, director and above. Adapt your strategy and stay abreast of what is happening to your key competitors. Key talent competitors, I must add. Now, as you start moving down the list and get to the point where you start thinking about summer hires and how those have historically fueled your future pipeline, think about virtual recruiting fairs, but understanding that the new hire actual start dates may be delayed for a few months. Be transparent. As we held conversations here at Intel with top unicorn and Fortune 500 companies, it was crystal clear that video interviewing, custom journeying, and intelligent scheduling technologies were an essential piece of today's recruit toolbox. From my side, we were super fortunate to acquire ConveyIQ last summer as we thought about the importance of that candidate experience, which led with the insights-powered outreach, followed them through the application process, and interviewing all the way down to onboarding. Now that the strategy is set, let's talk about some external pipeline and outreach campaigns you can run. How about competitor campaigns? I call this a be like Mike, and dating myself, totally Michael Jordan reference, I get it. but think about what companies your leaders would want to emulate. You'll need talent with experience from larger, more successful companies. I was working at LinkedIn prior to joining Entelo and saw this there. Yep, even at LinkedIn. Now build that list, test the strengths, create those pipelines, and talk to the department heads on what you're trying to do. Show your work, show your worth. Build those internal relationships as much as you can, and try to have an executive sponsor who has your back as you navigate through the organization. Look at the talent flows. Again, here in Entelo, we've looked at who influenced, who you hired overall, who you missed, and who left. These 4 things together provide a robust picture of the skills that you may have unconsciously been quote unquote attracted to, and how to improve on where you lost and bring that to the top. Well, it's really easy to see what titles were lost. But when you actually analyze the hard and soft skills, the years of experience, the locations, that brings an additional layer. Learn your ATS and your systems and use this. Number 2, nurture campaigns. It is essential to have a multi-touch approach that really leverages the employer brand adapted for times, and that really goes beyond just the email. Transparency, trust, and your voice are key here. As are leveraging multi-parties as appropriate. We call this multi-threading throughout the cycle. This is how salespeople land the whale accounts. Leverage technology. Find ways to scale your activities. Most people will be thinking about companies and industries. They're also that are going strong, right? Those that are maybe not as impacted by what's going on right now. We call this you never know tailored campaigns for them. Engage. And 3, D&I campaigns. Just never stop. This is key and will remain that way. The damage that could be done during these times could take decades to repair. Look for diverse industries, diverse educational life experiences that provide culture adds. Think about professional groups, allies. And of course, gender ethnicity. Consider things like the entrepreneurship badge if you're recruiting for a Fortune 500 company, because you absolutely want those types of skills. And bring that to the table will help you stand out in front of your leaders. All right, so we got the strategy, you built your list, and now we're launching our messaging campaigns. Here are 10 things that can help us as we lead with empathy and honesty during these very sensitive times. The biggest thing, focus on the human connection. Personalize as much as possible and write like you speak, so it doesn't feel like a cold robot. Names, roles, hiring managers, links that are relevant, and of course, you test for efficiency are key. Sending a text message and an email, and that's kind of what we do here with Convey IQ. Use images, GIFs as appropriate, showcase what you're about. Keep it authentic, keep it real. Leverage your hiring manager as much as possible. Their voice, accomplishments, leadership style, and their vision as part of that recruiting exercise, intro videos that tell their story, their human struggle, and where specifically you as a candidate fits in. Our platform provides the ability to send on behalf of them as well. Now, number 5, this might be the most important one. You, the recruiter, you, the sourcer, you, the TA professional, become the link. Leverage that. So it's not just the employer brand, but go back to why they should specifically speak with you. And just do it, don't be afraid to reach out. Our product includes both subject line and messaging optimization based on millions of recruiting emails. We're all nervous. And whether the candidate is ready or not, the relationship will pan in the long run, one way or another. They'll remember you. Just ask the prom king or queen out. No harm, no foul, right? The amazing candidates you thought would never give you time of day might be more responsive right now. There's absolutely nothing to lose. The double tap. Essentially what we consider as the email and email combined as appropriate during that initial outreach. Those employed, especially outside recruiting, sales, and marketing, they really don't spend as much time on LinkedIn as we do. Step away from a little bubble and maximize your reach. Do not let your foot off the D&I pedal. Very important. This still matters when it comes to innovation, revenue per employee, and of course, stock price. Build cadences and journeys to ensure that candidates are getting a really nice flow of information that doesn't stop and that is smart enough to know when there has been a reply or has been multi-channeled. Interject as much as possible into the possible. And review the data. Make sure you're A/B testing. This is very important. Eliminate what didn't work. Double down on what messaging and strategies work best.
Thank you so much, Alejandro, for sharing these tips. We've covered quite a bit today. We reviewed some of the economic trends, started to think about what happens next, and how we maximize our impact as TA professionals. We've also looked over some tactical tips on pipelining and outreach best practices. To close things out today, I'd love for us to get some insights from an industry thought leader that is actually practicing some of these concepts in his day-to-day, all day, every day. I'm pleased to introduce Mike. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
We're good.
Good.
So, go ahead.
You guys speak so properly. I'm like, oh my Lord, this is going to be a disaster. So yeah, I wanted to connect about this. Super important, and I know you have some questions to ask, and I definitely encourage the audience as well to ask anything you guys want to know. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you. So please, anything that we can help with, we'd really love to help you out. In the meantime, I'll answer questions that may be on your mind or maybe we didn't even think of. So hit me with it, Candace.
Okay. How has your sourcing strategy changed during this pandemic? I know this is a loaded question.
Yeah. I was like, we have a half hour still, right? Interesting. Are companies hiring as much? For the most part, no. It depends on what field you're in: media, health, quote unquote essential services, retail as it relates to big box and e-commerce. But what about for the rest of us, right? Like, what are we doing, right? I have a tech company who's looking, and the short answer is now is the time when I'm sourcing that I'm pipelining at a really, really high level. So what does that mean? That means if we're not quite as busy, right? Maybe we've only got 3 recs as opposed to 30. I'm now being super, super picky about what I'm looking for. And now's a really great time to start rating candidates, right? I know not all of us rate, and I guess I get that. Not really, but I'll give it to you for now. Now's a really great time, as opposed to just sourcing and building lists of people and getting contact information, that we're building out some type of ranking system and really working that process. So when things do start opening up again, we're not just like mass exploding all over everybody. I regret saying that immediately. So I think one of the other pieces is being strategic with your sourcing. So yes, Audra, I certainly can. Give me just one moment. So one of the other things we can do is creative sourcing. So I know we've just spoken about and we're shared, like, be more personal, right? Speak as you are. But how are you more personal in an email unless you're sending one email at a time, right? And I mean, to quote a very old meme, ain't nobody got time for that, right? So what's the real world look like for that? The real world looks like creative sourcing that leads to custom messaging. So maybe running searches where people have graduated from the same university as your hiring manager. Maybe running searches specifically from people who used to work at the same company. Or if you want to get crazy, look at people who were in the same meetup group as your hiring manager doing something extracurricular, right? Like, hey, our hiring manager's into kite surfing, right? Like, hey, I saw you were in a meetup around kite surfing. And sure, you may only get 5, 10, 20 people. But imagine the messaging reaching out to someone saying, hey, I saw you were a Java developer in Los Angeles. I happened to notice you were in a kite surfing meetup group. That's so awesome. Our hiring manager, hyperlink, is also into kite surfing, and he's looking to hire Java developers at some point when all of this clears up. Is that something maybe you'd be interested in connecting about? Right? So when we're able to start sourcing at a more creative level, we're able to start messaging at a more creative level. Audra had asked the question, can I give an example of how I rank? Sure. So first, so everyone knows, ranking is a little bit subjective. Very hard to completely objectively rank candidates. I'm generally looking at a holistic view of the candidate. So I rank 1 through 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the least best. So the 1 candidates are super few and far between. These really are like the rock stars that I tell myself, if a hiring manager looked at this profile, this resume, this background, would they say, holy crap, if they're open to taking our salary band, I would hire this person almost immediately? that's a 1 to me, right? Do they have all the requirements and all of, if not most of, all of the pluses in their background, plus an industry, we'll call leading background, right? So for salespeople, they went to a decent or great school. They've done an internship. They've worked at companies who are either selling similar things or working in a similar process, similar scope of sales goals, right? Easy to determine for software, but that's what I'm looking at the 1s. The 5s for me, super easy. These are people who might be a fit, but I don't think they're necessarily worth messaging. I want to include them though, because they could be, right? People with maybe no data on their profile and like mediocre companies, that's a 5. Maybe we want to message them, probably not. And then I'm dropping back, right? So from the 1s, if somebody has most of the requirements and most of the pluses, great background, et cetera, probably a 2. Now, right now you're probably saying, oh, that seems a little bit subjective. Sure, you're right. There's never a time where my team and I are off by more than 1 ranking. I'm never giving somebody a 2 and my teammate says, oh, that's a 5. Right? Like maybe a 2 and a 3, maybe a 1 and a 2. And in the grand schema of things, does that really change anything? No, not really. But that's generally my approach to it. If you're interested, you can reach out. I have a general guideline that helps new people kind of work through this that I'd be happy to share with you.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, can you give us an idea of what your outreach messaging looks like? I think we have some templates of yours here.
Yeah. So I love messaging. I'm obsessed with the statistics around messaging, and I've done an extensive amount of research, like a scientific journal research on the different effects of messaging on response rates and behavioral analytics, like making people respond or feel a certain way based on how you word things. So I would love to share with anybody. If anybody wants, Entelo is totally hooking you guys up with this. These are my actual templates I'm sending right now on a search I'm doing right now. And Entelo has agreed. You can reach out to me and I will share all of these messages and you can give them a big thank you for that. So the way I organize, I send everybody 5 messages, unless they respond, right? I'm not reaching out after they respond. That's silly. And it's over about 8 to 10 business days. And they're fairly customized. So when you see the little squiggly brackets, those are modifiers that get filled in. And I want to send them according to a DISC personality assessment. So if you're not familiar with DISC, it's like Myers-Briggs, but on what I think research steroids. And the 4 personalities are a D, an I, an S, and a C. It's a dominant, influential, steady, compliant, or conscientious. And so I write one of these emails in a way that each of the personality types would read that email and pull the content the way that is most easily read. So first, in message number 1, this is written for a high D, a really dominant personality type, usually in a rush, alpha personality, and you'll see it says TLDR up top. So super quick, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what this email's about. Read further if you want. What you're going to notice is in the first sentence, I'm super cognizant about what's happening right now, right? I'm not saying, hey, are things still going great at your company? No, they're probably not. That'd be fairly insensitive. This is also a search done in New York City. I'm probably not saying, hey, I hope things are going well. They're probably not. They're probably stuck at home in their apartment, right? So I want to make that really aware, right? Socially aware. Templates for subject lines. Yes, Kim, will in one moment. They're really straightforward. You're not going to like them at all, but they work. So the second message 2, is written for people who are a high S. These are people who love teams. right? So my second message always is all about they, we, here's what's going on. Here's our team, here's our company. Talk about the culture, really, again, speak to the way that person likes to receive data. And then moving on to message three. Message three is written for a high C. These are super like to the point. They like bullet points. Give me the data, leave me alone, right? 2 sentences, move on. Number four is written for a high I. They're like the people. I'm a very high I. They like humor and being super personal. They love exclamation points. So that friend you have who puts an exclamation point at the end of every sentence, they're a high I. I always put a meme in there. And I reference at the very end, it just slightly got cut off. It says, let me know if you're interested in this role, or if you got a chuckle out of the meme. And so, oh, it didn't get cut off. My screen is too small. Sorry, guys. So people can respond and feel comfortable to say, I'm not looking, but yeah, that was pretty funny. Or, no, I don't get it. You're an idiot. I'm fine with either of those. They're not mutually exclusive. And then the fifth one is just me. It's all me and my personality. Those are actually my dogs. And I send them a picture and I'm like, hey guys, like, here's me. Like, love my dogs. If you like dogs too, great. If you don't, like, we probably shouldn't be in touch anyway because we have nothing in common. And so the emails are written in a way where people feel connected to at least one of the emails in a way to respond. And they're sent in reply to the previous emails. So when you're referencing, hey, I sent you an email blank days ago, it's in that thread still. It's not like you're referencing something that then they're like, wait, really? And they have to go look it up and then reference. No. All in one string over about 8 to 10 business days. Kim asked a question, can we also see your templates for subject lines? So I write these in reply to each other, so they maintain the same subject line, and they append RE to the beginning of the email. So I always A/B test them. One of them is always their company name. So if they worked at, let's say, Lockheed Martin Missile Defense Group, I clean up their company name and the subject of the email would just say Lockheed, which works because the first thing I ask them in the first email is, hey, are things going okay at your company? Right? The other one, I normally try to do something creative. I think for this, I literally just said, it's the head of this division at this client, which it's a relatively sexy client. So I think people would respond to that. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Mike. Our next question is, how do you suggest recruiters and sourcers go about getting buy-in from the team when developing a fresh or experimental pipelining strategy?
Oh, this is so fun. I just submitted an article to SourceCon about this exact subject. So this is all data, right? I think we've all had that experience in either direction, right? Where an executive comes in and tells you, hey guys, I think it's totally reasonable that you're doing 40 candidate screens a week, every week, right? And like, as a sourcer or a recruiter, I'm like, are you high? Like, what are you talking about? That's like 8 screens every single day on top of all the other things I have to do. Like, there's no way you're pulling that number clear out of your, where, right? Conversely, right, you're an executive and the sourcer's telling you, hey, I can really only do 1 screen a day, maybe 4 a week, right? And your executive's like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing with the rest of your time? How can you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing. In both of these scenarios, both humans are just whining and complaining with 0 data to back up what they're talking about. So how does that wrap into this question? The easiest way to get buy-in for tooling, right? Oh, hey, you want to work with Entelo, for example, right? Great. Show me the value. And don't just say, oh, it's going to reduce our sourcing time. It does, AI sourcing is going to match everything up. And yeah, it does that. But show me data. Are you tracking the number of profiles you look at as a sourcer? Are you tracking the platforms you found each of these candidates on? Are you tracking the Boolean strings you wrote on those platforms, or whether that platform was using an AI technology to find them? Are you keeping track of where you're getting the most email addresses? Which ones are the most accurate? Are you keeping track of how many candidates you're weeding out because of title, because of company, because of years of experience, duration, and role? Are you tracking that? If you're not, you are not going to get buy-in unless your executives are super flush with cash, right? Or you're a total rock star salesperson, in which case, sweet. For the rest of us, you need to be able to come to the table and show, here are our numbers. Here's where we're deficient, right? Here's where we're hitting a roadblock. Here's an opportunity for growth. Hey, this tool, this process, this strategy will alleviate this burden by doing X and Y and Z. I'd like to take Entelo. I want to take a pilot of Entelo or a demo of Entelo. And my goal is to focus on solving this problem. If I can make this number, right? But increase your response rate, increase your contact information finding, your submittals, whatever it is. Hey, that would be worth this much money to the company in placements. Or I'm spending 12 hours a week dealing with inbound candidates. If I can reduce that time to 2 hours a week, well, I just saved the company 10 hours a week, right? You can calculate what you cost per hour. You can break that out, but you need the data to support those decisions and get the buy-in.
Awesome. The last question that I have for you today is what should TA professionals be doing now in this time of uncertainty when they have extra time during the day? They're not actively doing as many hires.
Yeah, not eating everything in sight. Trust me, it's not a good idea. I can speak from personal experience. So one of the things I'm telling you, this is what we're doing right now at Wayne Tech, is we're looking at our entire process workflow and our tooling workflow. We're in a really blessed position to be able to use somewhere between 35 and 40 recruiting tools. We use about 20 actively every single day. And we're looking at our process and not looking at it at this 30,000 foot, okay, you do this, then you do this, you do this. I'll have you know, as a team, we're sitting down for an hour every day. We have a spreadsheet in front of us because I'm a spreadsheet nerd. And we're going step by step. Like if we had to explain this to a 12-year-old, could they follow these directions and do it? You know, click here, open this, new this, name it this. And we're a 3-person company, and I can tell you, we had totally different ways of doing like 30 or 40% of this process. And so it brings us together, and it enables me as a leader, them as a user, to really come to the table with, hey, I think this would be a better way of doing this, right? And I've hired some pretty smart people, and so I'm fairly often swallowing my pride going, oh crap, like that is a way better way of doing this. And we're able to walk through that now as a team, develop best practices, and establish, again, where is our time suck? Where are we spending the most time to do a task that we shouldn't have to spend that time doing? So when we get through this whole process, it's taken us 2 weeks. We're still not done. We're maybe halfway done. Can we then tell the story of how we work? Can we train a new person without having to walk them through it manually? And can we identify where we're spending the most time and where we could potentially change our process or add in a tool that would help expedite that process or make it more automated or efficient? So that's the number one way. The other thing I will share is make sure you're getting sunlight and exercise. The sunlight piece is for vitamin D. If you study the flu of 1918 in Boston, they learned at that instance the effect that vitamin D has on physical wellness. So make sure you're doing that. Sorry if you're in Seattle. And make sure you're getting some form of physical exercise. It's super lonely. This is a super depressing time. My wife and I are going through that as well. Connect with people in the industry. This is a great time to get a mentor. This is a great time to get a mentee. This is a great time to reach out to all those people whose names you've heard, right? The Dean DaCostas, the Carmen Hudsons, the Steve Levy's, right? Like reach out to them. we're all pretty cool, down to earth people. You'll also find that most of us hang out in a Zoom info or two, or in a Zoom meeting every week. So often multiple a week. Come, hang out, join the community, take a bigger role, put yourself out there, reach out to somebody you think would never want to talk to you. Trust me, we do. We're also depressed and lonely. I stay safe, guys. We're going to make it through this, and we're going to make it through this together, and we will be stronger when we come out the other end.
Thank you. Well, to wrap all of this up, I just wanted to go through some final thoughts and takeaways for today. So number one, keep calm and carry on. This too shall pass. Use this time to set yourself up for the recruiting rebound. 2, audit your current pipelining process, evaluating what's working and what's not. Start building a framework criteria for competitor, nurture, and D&I campaigns. 3, build out your communications and outreach templates, instill empathy, and focus on the human connection. Use personalization, graphics, and videos to stand out. I want to thank all of you for joining today. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@entelo.com. We're going to follow up with the recording and some resources for all of you to enjoy. Thank you so much, and be well.